First tonight, Cameroon's longtime president, Paul Biya, has been declared the winner of the country's fiercely disputed election. Mr. Biya, who's 92, has been in power for more than 4 decades and now has another 7-year mandate, which means he'll rule till he's nearly 100. The opposition candidate, Issa Chiroma Bakary, took just over 1/3 of the vote. He's rejected the result and accused Mr. Biya of stealing victory. At least 4 people were killed on Sunday as opposition supporters defied a ban on protests and clashed with police. On Saturday, 2 opposition figures allied to Mr. Bakary were arrested by hooded armed members of an elite military unit. Mr. Bakary says that he too is aware that he could be detained. Arise correspondent Yolanda Robert reports.
Anticlimax. An expected result for the nation of Cameroon. President Paul Biya at 92 clinched his 8th term with 53.7% of the ballots, as confirmed by the Constitutional Council. Major challenger Issa Chiroma Bakary, a one-time cabinet member, trailed with 35.2%. Bakary had prematurely declared triumph just days after the October 12 polls and urged street rallies. Tensions boiled over in Douala, the bustling commercial hub where lives were lost in skirmishes pitting law enforcement against opposition backers. This landslide reaffirms Biya's iron grip on power and makes him the oldest president in the world. But the bloodshed raises alarms about simmering unrest. But what does Biya's 8th term portend for Cameroon's path ahead? Stability under a veteran leader? Or escalating dissent in a divided land? Yolanda Robert, Arise News.
Well, for his assessment of the Cameroon ballot, I'm joined now in the studio by Professor Tunde Eshon, Professor of International Relations with a focus on the history of African elections and democratic developments on the continent. Prof, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, Charles.
It's taken 2 weeks, but Paul Biya has declared himself the winner, so the world's oldest leader at 92 has officially been re-elected for an 8th term with 53.7% of the vote. 2 days after that vote, however, the rival candidate, Issa Chiroma Bakary, claimed victory, and the official result, which came out today, is widely disputed. What's your reaction to all that?
Oh, looking at the history of Cameroon, it was not a surprise for a man who is running for the 8th term between 1992 and now. Don't forget that before even 1982, when he was officially elected as president, when he became president of Cameroon, he was prime minister between 1979 and between 1975 and 1982. In other words, either as a deputy minister, president, and the president of the of that Republic of Cameroon, he has been there actively for 50 years.
Amazing.
That's 1975 to now. Effectively as president for between 1982 and now, 43 years. That's what it means. So what we are saying is not something that is a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise for students of international relations, for observers of geopolitical events in West Africa, particularly when it comes to Cameroon. But what is surprising is the endurance, you understand,
of the people
of Cameroon. But that is a story
and I
for
mean,
another day.
Most of us would just be happy. I'm sure you and I would be happy to be alive at the age of 92, but not Paul Biya. Not only is he still going strong personally, as I said, he's just won re-election for an 8th term, and that could keep him in office until he's nearly 100 years old. And I understand that when he first became president, Ronald Reagan was in the White House.
Yeah, of course. That was
amazing,
in 1982.
isn't it?
You know, Ronald Reagan was the president of America in 1982. And what is even more surprising for students of international relations was that he became president because of the fears of Cameroonians that, look, Amadou Ahidjo was already perpetuating himself. You know, when you realize that Cameroon became independent in 1960, Understand? And of course, the Western Cameroon, the English-speaking Cameroon joined them in 1961, October 1st, 1961. So you are thinking about just 21 years. So a man with that kind of history will have thought that, look, maybe by 1990 he will be done with it, but it's not done. By the time he finishes in 2032, it will be 99. Effectively, it will be 100 years in 2033.
Amazing. And there's quite a lot of there's a lot of anger in response to the official results, isn't there? Mr. Bakary, the opposition candidate, his main rival, put out a statement saying his residence is being attacked and that 2 people have died. We understand security has been beefed up around the country. So it seems as if tensions are rising. Do you expect there to be protests, even though they've been banned by the authorities?
Yeah, there have been protests even from day one. If you look at it from October 12, by last Saturday, Douala, there was a massive protest where about 4 people were killed. You understand? Of course, tear gassing all over the place in Cameroon where there are protests. So protest has been going on. And when you look at the median age of the Cameroonians, it's about 25 years, one of the youngest in Africa. So what we are seeing is a generation who has never known any other head of state, any other political system, the same culture being perpetuated over and over again. But what is even more interesting, basically, is the history of Bakary himself. He was initially an opposition leader. But he was a government spokesman, eventually, he became a government spokesman, communication minister, and employment minister before he broke away. But what I think is happening, basically, is that whichever one look at it, Issa Bakary has shown a lot of resilience, courage, and
but I mean, he and the opposition have accused Mr. Biya of stealing the election. Mr. Bakary described the result as a masquerade. Does he have a point?
Yeah, it's difficult to prove that because the official result was not announced. Even 2 days after, he declared the fact that he's winning. And a few days later, he said he has won the election based on what has happened. But the official result says he has only 35% of the vote, whereas Paul Biya has 53.7%.
Yeah, but I mean, their argument is that that official result is rigged. I mean, I wonder if there is any, because you're a guy with an ear to the ground, you follow these trends much more than we do. Is there any evidence that you've seen that suggests the election was stolen? Because, I mean, international observers who were there have been saying that the conduct of the election was generally satisfactory, although they did highlight some irregularities.
It is difficult to prove these days. When you look at technology, and the fact that Cameroon is a fairly wide and big country, 475,000 square kilometers a country, almost traversing the entire stretch of one part of Nigeria, but not as big as Nigeria. And they have only 30 million people, less than 31 million people. In other words, sparsely dispersed people, you understand? And what it means basically is that monitoring can be a little bit of a challenge when it comes to that. So it is what they see that they will record. Let's not dismiss what they have. But what they see is what they will record. But what happens thereafter where they cannot get to, where they cannot access, in area for geography or for other reasons, and then we don't have much information about that, and we cannot say satisfactorily this is what has happened.
So does Cameroon now risk being plunged into political crisis and instability? Because, of course, Cameroon is already dealing with an Anglophone conflict in the English-speaking regions, as well as a Boko Haram insurgency in the far north. So adding another layer of chaos with these elections could certainly push the country into uncertain times, couldn't it?
It has been in uncertain times for some time, not just before, not just now that they have an election. Before now, it has been, like you rightly said, the rivalry, the rivalry for power, the schism, and of course, the challenges of maintaining cooperation and integration between the East and the West. Cameroon, the French-speaking and English Cameroon has been there for a fairly long time. And in some places, it has led to skirmishes and even ethnic clashes. So it has always been there, but it is too early to predict what the long-term effect will be. So it is safe to say, let's wait and see.
Right, but obviously if Issa Chiroma Bakary refuses to accept these results and continues to volubly insist that he won the election, that could potentially lead to more violence, couldn't it?
Yeah, depends on... he has done very well in mobilizing his supporters. For how long they can go, nobody can know under this circumstance where we are. You understand? And it might be too early to predict exactly what it is. But I think he did very well. He has shown courage. How far he can go, I don't know. Because, like I said, he was part of the system before. He showed courage. He said, look, I'm going to challenge the system. And how far he can go. So he knows the system, and the people in the system knows him.
So basically, there's no hope of change as far as Paul Biya is concerned. And the most predictable thing is that he's going to die in office.
No, in the short run, but in the long run, nobody can say. Nobody can say. It is unpredictable in the long run. But in the short run, maybe a few months, few years, nobody can say.
Right.
You know.
Prof, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very
Professor
much.
Tunde Eshon is a professor of international relations with a focus on the history of African elections and democratic developments on the continent. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Charles.